Okay, these are the notes that we did on Thursday and Friday in class, and you should start off by copying this table down into your notes. And I'm going to fill in this part and talk you through it as we go through it. And pause the video, get this part copied down. Okay, now that you've copied this down, what we did the day before was we did conditional statements. And the first thing I want you to do is get two colors out. It could be highlighters or it could be colored pens or pencils. You can either highlight or underline these parts I'm going to say. Okay, pause the video and get the colors. Okay, so what I want you to do is highlight the part that's the hypothesis, one color, and highlight the part that's the conclusion, a different color. You can pick whatever colors you like. And then what I want you to do is look at this. They sometimes write it like this with a P and a Q. And the Q just stands for the, whatever the conclusion was. The P stands for the hypothesis, the Q stands for the conclusion. So highlight those so that they match the one on the side. Then we're going to say that this statement is true, that we're talking about this Austin here in Texas. I had one of my classes that decided that they really wanted to argue about it and say, oh, well, there's a city called Austin in Haiti, and so it might be true. Well, the test is honestly online. It's an online computer test. It's all multiple choice, and a lot of the questions ask you true, false. This is not the time to play Trivial Pursuit. This is not the time to be clever, because you're going to end up missing the questions on the test. Just go with the regular knowledge that all of us understand. If you live in Austin, then you live in Texas. That is true. Now I'm going to talk about what a converse is. And the only tricky part about this is you have to remember the difference in these three words. So I'll kind of try to give you some hints on that, on how to remember. On the converse, you switch the order. So what you're doing is you're taking and you switch the P and the Q. So go through here and highlight the P the same color it was before, and then highlight the Q the same color it was before, so you can see that you switched those. Then we're going to switch our sentences as well. If you live in Texas, that's the part that was the conclusion. Now we switch it, and then we switch this part. So we switched these. If you need to pause the video or pause and rewind it to copy this down, you should. Now, is this sentence true? If you live in Texas, you live in Austin? No, you could live in Houston or Dallas or any other city. So that one's false. The way I suggest to remember Converse is there's a brand that makes things called Converse. They make running shoes. So it's kind of like you're running back and forth here. You started here and you run and to move these things around. Okay, inverse is our next kind. And inverse, I always tell people it sounds like it starts with the letter N. Inverse. That's what it sounds like you're saying. So remember that N stands for not. We're going to make these negative. So we're going to go back to the original order we had up here. The P is first. But this time we're going to make it not P. So I'm going to highlight that so that we can see that that's a not there. And I suggest either highlighting it or underlining your not part so you can tell that that's the not. Now over here we're going to have not Q. Notice it's the same order as the first one, but the not becomes the important part on this. So not P, not Q. Remember, inverse, N stands for not. So our sentence is going to go back to this order we had up here, and it's just going to have nots in it. So I'm going to highlight it like you did the first one, take a minute, pause and rewind the video so you can get this highlighted and copied down. Now that you've got this all copied, is this one true or false? And a lot of the times the ones when they start getting the knots, they start getting a little tricky. So you have to be really careful when you think through these. There's a lot of true or falses on the test. If you do not live in Austin, then you do not live in Texas. Well, that's not true because you could still live in like Houston or Dallas or something and live in Texas. Finally, we have the contrapositive, and I always tell students to remember that the contrapositive, that sounds like the most complicated, converse, inverse, contrapositive, it sounds like the trickiest one. And so it's the one where you have to do both things. You have to switch the order and make it negative. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the original, we're going to switch the order, and if you'll highlight it, you can see that you switch the order, and we made them negative. So I'm going to underline my knots again so it's easier to see them. That this is the one that we made negative. So what's our sentence going to be? Well, it's going to be, if you do not live in Texas, and I'm going to highlight that blue, then you do not live in Austin. And again, I'm going to highlight the knots so that we can see them. Pause the video and write this down and get it highlighted. And finally, is this one true or false? This one's true. Now there's two more sentences I want you to write down. The first one is this right here. Get it so you can see it. If the conditional is true, the contrapositive is also true. Always notice that these two here, whatever the conditional statement is, if it's true, this one is always true. What that tells us is this one here is sometimes hard to reason through with all the knots in it. So if you do this one and you know what this one is, you can always figure this one is also true. Then, our other sentence I want you to write down is, what is a biconditional? That's the other term you have today, and a biconditional statement just means that the statement and its converse are both true. I can switch the order and it's still true.